What's going on, YouTube? We're back at it for another video, and today we're going to be talking about the best of the support weapons after the changes, after the patch. Talk about the elephant in the room real quick with the railgun. This did not get nerfed into the ground by all means. It is still something that is going to be extremely powerful and useful to certain teams, but it won't be something that everybody must use or everybody wants to use. It's also not going to be exactly the most solo friendly. They did diminish its overall capabilities, especially when it comes to safe mode. Now it would only have medium armor penetration, so in order to get that heavy armor penetration, you are going to need to utilize this in the unsafe mode and charge it to a point where it is high enough in order to actually penetrate that armor. Otherwise it will just keep bouncing off that armor, which it makes it a little bit more skill oriented to get the most bang for the buck out of it, but it can be more rewarding in that instance. Now, one thing to key highlight, there is still something with BILE Titans that I am not a big fan of. I feel there is still a bug out there. I saw a video recently where they were talking about the PS5 host versus the PC host, where it seemed as though the BILE Titans had different healths or different armor mechanics in those moments, where one of them would just eat every railgun round that you could shoot into it, and then on the PS5 side, it would just get 1 to 3 shot. And I did have this instance happen yesterday while I was testing with the railgun after the patch. I had one match where one BILE Titan was eating just about every railgun shot in unsafe mode from me, and then in the next match I was able to one-shot one of the BILE Titans. So I couldn't tell you. I wasn't capable of speaking with the teammate that was the host in that as to whether or not they were PC or PS5 or what could be the possibility that's going on with that situation. But that is still something that I would say is a problem right now. I have had this since the beginning of the game, where there have been moments where it seems as though there are some BILE Titans that are completely eating 500 kgs, multiple rocket pods, rail cannons, railgun shots. It is a bit ridiculous in certain instances. And on top of that, I cannot determine whether or not there is actually a more heavily armored variant that is the possibility and not that of the PS5 versus PC variant. If the possibility is out there that there is a stronger, more heavily armored version of the BILE Titan, that would make more sense when it comes to the harder portions of the difficulty, considering I have been in nothing but Helldive since I've gotten to Helldive difficulty, and there are just so many different moments where it feels as though I understand there's not an increase to the overall health, but there is definitely something going on when it comes to possibly the amount of armor they have and how much penetration damage you can deal towards those targets specifically. And I do feel as though there is a variant of the Charger that has this same type of increased overall armor as well. So that's something to put out there, and if you know anything about this, let me know down in the comments below. I'd love to hear more about this. I feel like I've heard one person kind of make one note about this, but I haven't seen anything more deeper on that type of conversation. But overall, if the railgun is just not suiting your fancy right now and it feels a little bit uncomfortable to use that unsafe mode and you're not too happy with it, but you still want to have some of that armor piercing capability, you have the option of the spear, the recoilless rifle, and the expendable anti-tank. Now the spear is still going to be irritating with its lock-on system, and if there are multiple targets in front of you while you're trying to lock onto one target, more than likely it won't be capable of locking on, and it can be quite frustrating, or it'll lock on to something completely smaller than a BILE Titan. But you can one-shot a BILE Titan with the spear, and I will say this may be a lot more useful now when it comes to facing off with the Terminid. I'm still not 100% using this towards the automatons, as you will have to stand still or put yourself into situations where you're out in the open in order to get that lock on, and when you're getting shot back at, that can be a problematic instance. But no doubt the recoilless rifle and the expendable anti-tank will probably see a lot more love in the coming future, and I will keep hammering down that EAT 17 expendable anti-tank is going to be a fantastic option to throw in. It's possible some people may throw in this along with the autocannon, so you will carry the autocannon and the backpack for it, and then in moments when you start to face off with Chargers and BILE Titans, you can spawn in that expendable anti-tank. Considering it's only 70 seconds until you'll be able to spawn that in, you'll just have to run over, grab one of the rockets, shoot that one off, throw it off to the side, and then grab that autocannon again, and then start shooting into that weak spot. And with the expendable anti-tank rocket, you can blow off the armor of one of the legs of the Charger, so this now may be one of the faster options to take down those Chargers, as compared to utilizing that railgun against those legs, which will now take 3 shots with unsafe mode in order to take that armor off. So this will be a much easier option out there for a lot of people to be able to deal with those massive crowds of chargers. And the same thing can happen with the recoilless rifle. You can also utilize this to blow off that leg armor of those chargers and take them down with your primary weapon. And I will say that it's still better to go for aiming for that leg shot instead of aiming for that headshot when it comes to taking down those chargers. Now that we've addressed that elephant in the room, let's get to the real meaty portion of this, where some of these special weapons are really starting to shine after this patch, and we're going to start off talking about the flamethrower. Now, if you're looking to take down some of those chargers and be a true crowd control machine when it comes to facing off with the Terminid, this is going to be an excellent option. But I will say, I tested this against the bots over on the automaton side of things. No, don't do it. You know, it was a good bit of fun. It can take out the humanoid bots, but overall, it's still going to be one of those that is better suited for one side of the fight rather than the other. But it is definitely excelling at taking out the Terminid now. It will be fast enough to kill some of those smaller enemies. The damage over time is greatly increased, and within 1 canister, you can completely destroy chargers. Now, I believe there is a trick to killing these chargers as well, as multiple times while I was using this, in certain instances, it took a bit more, and I think it's dependent on where you aim the flame at that charger. I think just like before when we were taking out the leg armor, you want to aim for the legs and those soft spots like at the back end of it. If you may have noticed before, there's also a weak spot on the inside of the back of the legs of the charger, so if you can get that flame directly on those legs or on the back end of him, you'll be able to nail him and possibly kill him faster than you would with just an entire canister. It can be quite devastating, and it is going to be a huge help and a whole lot of fun utilizing this weapon. But do still keep in mind that this has extreme capabilities of friendly fire. I am very much happy that they actually amplified the damage on this one, and it has been a good bit of fun. Sadly enough, the rest of the fire damage from everything else didn't go up with its damage over time, so napalm is still not a great option right now. I'm very sad about it, but hopefully in the future we may see the damage over time with napalm go up, and maybe it'll be more of a viable option for the Terminid. Coming up right after that, we've got the laser cannon, which, man, this was not good before, and I was not a big fan of it. Apparently their decision was to try and make this similar to a machine gun that was unlimited ammo, but it really underperformed, and it was not something I would consider even close to what the machine gun's power was capable of. But now this thing is absolutely running through those automatons. Now, not only will it have medium armor penetration, so if you aim at that face of the Hulk with this one, you will be able to take them down fairly quickly. But at that same point, if you aim at the weak spots of heavily armored tanks or even the laser tanks and that of the cannon turret, the mortar emplacements, the anti-aircraft emplacements, each one of those, if you're landing the shots with this laser on those weak spots, you are going to melt every single one of these. It is absolutely devastating. And I am so glad that they actually implemented this change to this weapon, as it makes it completely viable now and a strong contender when it comes to the options you have available for you when it comes to support weapons. And it is a good bit of fun. Along with that, the capability of it being unlimited ammo. Now, it may not be the greatest to use on some of those hotter planets, as it will heat up over time, but if you're on a frozen planet, this is going to be an absolute excellent choice to slot in for your stratagems as a support weapon. But one of the only drawbacks when it comes to facing off with the automatons with this weapon is the simple fact that against the Star Wars walkers, it is very slow to take them down, so I would still say in that instance, you can utilize this to take them down, but it may be a good bit of a waste of your time, and grenades will be the better option, if not just running over to the side of them and taking them out with your primary weapon. And it is possible that this may be decent for both sides. I'd still say it's stronger for the automatons, but you can take down chargers with this. You'll just have to put a little bit more work in when it comes to facing off with that weak spot on the tail end of them, but it still can be useful against the Terminid. It just may not be as useful as it is against the automatons. So it's one of those moments where you can kind of pick and choose, but personally, right now, I'm feeling that the laser cannon, great for the automatons, flamethrower, great for that of the Terminid. So we've got a bit of diversity here and options when it comes to facing off with each side of the fight. But that's going to be it right there, guys. That's going to be the new best in slot for the support weapons in Helldivers 2. I am very pleased with some of these changes, even though a lot of people are having a bit of a hissy fit over the stratagems right now, or at least the railgun specifically, there's going to be some solo viable options. You're going to have to learn to kind of work around the mechanics and stop getting completely overwhelmed. If you are one of those people that's having a problem with how many Bile Titans and Chargers there are, you got to kind of learn a couple of those mechanics that I've been trying to speak about in some of these videos. But if you haven't seen that, look into some of my breakdown videos for certain loadouts or the actual gameplay portion of it, where I talk about how you're supposed to move around the crowds and how you can move through some of these missions while on Helldive difficulty to avoid massive overwhelming odds. And even when you do have those massive overwhelming odds, some of those tips on how to work around some of those crowds that you'll basically have to control. And it's all about teamwork in this game, and if you're trying to play it solo, trust me, it's going to inevitably be one of those moments where you're going to find matches where it's just going to be rough. You're going to get a bad drop and it's going to get pretty painful, and you're not going to have much for backup. You may just end up in a death loop where you're constantly just getting thrown back into the action. I've had it several times when I played solo. Solo is more of a challenge for myself, and if you're somebody that has been exclusively playing solo and you've required that railgun in order to be powerful, well, you're going to have to just be a little bit more skillful with it. It's by far not nerfed into the ground, but it's not going to be as easy to utilize as it once was. And by all means, this game will never be balanced around solo gameplay. But overall, let me know down in the comments how you're feeling about some of these changes, what you're using recently, what you'd like to see in the coming future as well. You never know. I will read a good bit of these comments, and if there's some key points that I really agree with, then I'll make some of these videos in the coming future. Who knows if the devs actually watch some of these. Obviously, they're looking at YouTube, looking at what is going to be the supposed meta options and how to work around some of the balancing acts that they have for the coming future. As this is definitely not the only balance they have coming. I imagine there is a slew of changes for other weapons, including the ARs in the coming future, as well as the fact that we have new weapons and new stratagems coming very soon to change things up, and we have no clue to the full scope of what is going to change in the coming future right now. And at that same time, you have to think about the fact that this is also on PlayStation 5, and anytime there's an update, Steam will obviously be instantly capable of updating, but they will have to go through Sony in order to go through a full check process in order to get that balancing patch through. So we will have to wait each time for those moments, and I believe this is just a segment of this actual full patch that we will be seeing in the future. That way there's not this massive update by the time that they do launch with a lot of this content, so everybody isn't stuck in this moment where they're downloading 50 gigs worth of an update possibly. And at that same time, more than likely trying to gather a bit of information on whether or not they're going in the right direction. They are open to that feedback, and they do want to hear the criticisms about certain things, as long as they're, reasonable and not just crybaby stuff. But hopefully this helped you out, and if you'd like to see more of this content, hit that subscribe button. And if you'd like to see some of this content live, hit that link down in the description below. Follow me over at Twitch. We're streaming daily. And on that note, have a good one.